First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank Chris for inviting me to be a part of this beautiful conference. I wish I could have been a part of more, but God put other things in my path. I bought my first home, and this was not expected. I've been moving all weekend, and, all this chaos and confusion going on around me, and, I'm trying to manage this and run this and do all this stuff, and I reached a point today where I just thought I was going to freak out, and I realized, I have to stop what I'm doing, and I have to get ready to go to this event. I have to go to speak. And actually, my daughter was like, you could probably just call and cancel, and I said, no, I need to do this. And then I walk in here, and I realize why. Because I see Beth come up here, and I see her stand there with, bravery and the hope of Alcoholics Anonymous, and, welcome home, Beth, and thank you. Thank you for being here, and I come in this room, and this energy, and all of you people are here, and I feel lit up from within, and all that energy that was drained out of me from moving boxes and trying to figure this out, trying to figure out how to navigate a 6-cat move from one house to another, all of that kind of led, it goes away. It melts away, because I'm surrounded by you beautiful people who are like the shining light of God that I witnessed when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I came in here a total agnostic, close to being an atheist, and I wanted nothing to do with God. And it was every single one of you, happy, joyous, and free people, who were the example of God's love. And thank you for that. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. I'm really excited, and hopefully I can, keep this energy going. It's been a weekend of, but it's also a weekend where I've been given these gifts, like this life beyond my wildest dreams. I was homeless for many, many years, and now I have a home of my own, and that's not something I ever imagined for myself. And I can lose sight of that gratitude very quickly. I can, look around the house and say there's a nick in the paint, or there's this, or my car isn't perfect, or this isn't perfect, and I can forget that before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was completely broken and I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing, and I hated myself, and I hated the world, and I hated everybody around me, and I hated God. And today, that reading, the central fact of my life today is that I have a God of my understanding who allows me to do things that I never imagined possible, and that allows me to navigate through situations I never imagined possible. I mean, if you want to test your spiritual condition, try assembling IKEA furniture. I guarantee you will find out very quickly how spiritually fit you are. But yeah, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love it with every fiber of my being, and that is not how I came in here. And if you would have told me, a decade ago, that I would drive or go to different places to talk about my relationship with God, I would have laughed in your face. Because that was never that was never in the cards. I was never interested in having a relationship with God. I didn't want what was going on here. In fact, by the time I came here, I had tried every other solution there was, because I didn't want the solution you were offering. I did not want the solution to my alcoholism to be God, the 12 steps, and this spiritual experience. I did not want that to be it. I wanted it to be a man. I wanted it to be money. I wanted it to be something out here. Maybe I'll bring a couple kids into this world, or I'll, fix up the outside a few more times, and that never worked for me. I had to burn through every single one of those things until I was ready to pick up that spiritual kit of tools you had all so lovingly placed at my feet time and time again with patience and love. I used to come in and out of the rooms of AA for so many years looking at you happy, joyous, and free people, and I hated you. I hated you because you had experienced a freedom and redemption that I did not think was possible for someone like me. I didn't think, after the things that I had done to my family, to my children, and everybody around me, that I would ever have what you had, and I hated you. And I certainly didn't want to do the work that you were doing in order to have that experience. And I love the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, especially our third tradition, which says the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using or drinking. And the truth is, I never had an honest desire to stop drinking. I just had an honest desire for the consequences to stop. That's all I wanted. I wanted to stop going to jail. I wanted to get my kids back. I wanted to keep a job. I wanted to put a roof over my head. I wanted to keep him. But I never wanted to stop drinking because alcohol did something for me. It produced an effect that I never wanted to be separated from. I remember, even before I picked up a drink, I walked through this earth terrified of everything. And I felt so disconnected, and all I ever wanted was to be a part of something. All I wanted to do was connect with something bigger than me. All I wanted to do was feel that love and connection that I saw other people experiencing that somehow seemed to elude me. As a little kid, I just felt less than my peers, less than my siblings. I didn't feel love from my parents, even if they showed it. And I had things that happened in my home, that were uncomfortable and painful, and they were, surrounding religion. So I had shunned the God idea. I threw that idea out. In fact, I had a conception of God when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous that didn't work for me. Because it was that sky daddy thing where, this God is, if you're a good little girl, you go to a nice place in the sky, and if you're a bad little girl, you burn in a fiery pit. And that was the message I got as a little kid, and that didn't work for me because I was convinced, even as a child, that I was not a good little girl, that there was something wrong with me, that I was being punished for being me. And then something happened to me at the age of 15. I experienced a trauma at the hands of these three men, and my mother's response and reaction to it was one of shame and guilt. How could you do that? How could you be so stupid? And it was from that moment, I didn't want to live on this earth anymore. The pain and the agony of being me became too much. And I would have easily killed myself if I hadn't picked up a drink and then experienced the effect produced by alcohol. And all of a sudden, for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't afraid of you. I connected with you. I felt that thing that had been missing my entire life, that love, that connection, that I had this spiritual experience for the first time in my entire life. And why would I ever want to be separated from that? Because I could breathe again, and I didn't want to die. And that, for me, was a miracle, and I chased that. And, early on, I drank alcoholically. I experienced that phenomenon of craving from the beginning. I just didn't have a label for it. I didn't know I had a physical allergy. I just knew that I was the embarrassing drunk. I was the one that, when you took me out with my friends, had to be dropped off on the front doorstep, and with an explanation to my parents. I always knew that one was never enough. I remember my father, he tried to teach me to appreciate scotch when I was 21 years old. And that man, he can swirl it around in his mouth, and he says, this tastes oaky or something. I don't know. I will drink rock-up alcohol, and I don't care what it tastes like. I will hold my nose to get it down faster because all I've ever cared about is the effect produced. Because it takes me out of this discomfort of my sober skin, which is really my problem. Because so many years I've come in and out of the rooms of AA, and I think it's alcohol that's my problem. Separate me from alcohol, and I'll be okay. Separate me from alcohol, I'll be fine. Although, the problem with that is I keep getting separated from alcohol. Over and over and over again. There are a lot of, law enforcement always separated me from alcohol. And it just didn't take. Because the second you open whatever detox facility or rehab or jail cell I'm in, I start drinking again, and I don't care about consequences. But, in the beginning, it didn't start off like that. It says many of us started out as moderate or hard drinkers. I think I might have skipped over the moderate part, and I don't say that because I think I'm some kind of badass. I think I say that because of how the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous defines these categories of drinkers. And it says a moderate drinker can stop a little trouble if given sufficient reason or something to that effect. And my truth is that I could never stop with little or no trouble. That was, every time I had to stop, no matter what the reason, it was painful and it was uncomfortable. Like when I got pregnant at the age of 19, and I had to be pregnant for those 9 months and stop drinking. Dear God, it was awful. My sisters, they're pregnant and they're decorating nurseries and they're picking out baby names and doing this thing called nesting that I know nothing about because I'm a terrible mother. I don't care. I'm just I got pregnant out of wedlock and my parents thought it was a good idea for me to get married. I'm like, sure, whatever. And I am in pain every single day of this pregnancy. This is how I treat the pregnancy. If this is a prison sentence, let me count the days until I can get this kid out of me so I can get drunk again, and that's exactly what I did. And again, experienced that effect produced by alcohol. But when you fast forward, 7 years later, second marriage, second pregnancy, I can't stay sober. I don't want to stay sober. No desire. I have no desire to protect the child I'm carrying. In fact, I don't love or care about the child I'm carrying. All I care about is me. I'm just in pain, and I don't want to let go of this, this security blanket, this thing that gives me that ease and comfort. And I drank the entire pregnancy, and as a direct result, my son is born 3 months premature. And he's 2 pounds, and he's in the NICU, and he's on life support. And I remember seeing him for the first time, and in his little incubator, and And the second I looked at him, all that love that was missing for the months that I was pregnant was there. Like, I loved him in that moment as much as I was able or capable of loving anyone at that point in my life. But what came along with that love was this overwhelming sense of guilt and shame because I put him there. He couldn't breathe because of me. He couldn't be held because of me. That was my fault, and I knew that. And so I started drinking and drinking and drinking to drown out this deep, deep shame. And the problem with that is alcohol is not producing the same effect as it used to produce, and I need more, and I need more, and I need more. Our big book says that many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we wanted to. And that is my truth. Like, I wanted to be a good mother. I wanted to be a good wife, a good sister, a good daughter. I just don't have the power to do that because the kind of mother I am, I nod out and I drop my son on the floor. Or I leave him in a hot car to go get a drink, and I walk around the corner, and I'm the kind of mother who got arrested with my 8-month-old son in the car and had to, have my husband come pick him up from the police station. And I remember getting bailed out the next day and coming home, and my husband has everything packed, and he's going to leave me. And that can't happen because I have to keep the outside okay. That is the only thing I believe will make me okay. So he can't leave me. So I beg, and I plead, and I promise. I promise everything. And in that moment, I mean every single one of those promises. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. And finally, that man caves, and he looks at me, and he says, okay, I'll stay on one condition. One condition. You go to treatment today, you get sober today. And I looked at that man, and I looked at my little boy, and I knew he was going to walk out the door. And I said no. Because here's what my mind tells me. Here's what my alcoholism tells me. You'll fix it tomorrow. You will get him back tomorrow. But right now, you need a drink. And, after he left, the shame got even worse because for so many years, I believed the lie that I chose this, that I chose alcohol over my children, that I chose alcohol over my marriages, that I chose alcohol over my parents and my friends and my jobs and my homes. I believed that I had the power of choice, and it wasn't until a woman in Alcoholics Anonymous sat down with me and opened up that beautiful book and explained to me that for reasons yet obscure, most of us have lost the power of choice when it comes to a drink. And in that moment, when that woman said that to me and showed that to me in black and white, I started to get set free just a little bit. Because for the first time in my life, I believed that I wasn't this garbage lowlife, this scumbag who was beyond saving, who could never be redeemed for the things I did. And I knew I was just an alcoholic. And alcohol had that much power over me, and that it was beyond human aid, and that I needed power that much bigger than alcohol. And I am not standing up here saying that, this excuses my behavior and that I don't have to spend the rest of my life attempting to clean up the debris that I have accumulated out of years and years of living on self-will. I still have to, every day for the rest of my life until I die, have to do what I can to amend the relationships that I hurt as a direct result of my alcoholism, especially to my children. But the truth is, I didn't have the power to choose my children. I didn't. And I would love to tell you that my husband walking out the door was enough to get me to stop, and losing custody of both my children was enough to get me to stop, or ending up on life support was enough to get me to stop. Or the 11 felonies that I ended up racking up was enough to get me to stop, but that wouldn't be the truth. Because there was no external consequence that was great enough to separate me from alcohol. And if you're sitting here tonight and you hear these crazy consequences that I have and they don't match yours, that doesn't matter because none of those things make me an alcoholic. The only reason I talk about them is they're the truth, they're part of my story, and it's an illustration of how much power alcohol had over me. I gave everything to alcohol. It's so funny, right? I come into AA and you're saying, you have to turn your will and your life over to a power greater than you. And I'm like, nope. And I, at 15 years old, I turned my will and my life to a power greater than me. Power greater than me. I gave my will and my life to alcohol for 20 plus years. I gave everything to this higher power. Everything. My children, my soul, my self-respect, everything. And, no outside consequence was enough, and it wasn't until the pain became bad enough internally where something changed, and that happened to me May 2nd of 2012, and it was not, in my plan. I was on a run, and it wasn't even one of the worst runs I'd ever been on. most of the runs I had gone on, like, they were very long and drawn out. At the end of them, I was, essentially couch hopping, and maybe I had a bag full of clothes, but I had nothing material. And this one was different. I had a roof over my head. I had a car. I had money in my pocket. And I wanted to die. And I remember that night, I think it was yesterday, and I remember getting on the highway, going to get a drink at 3 or 4 in the morning. And for the first time in my life, I had this overwhelming and overpowering desire to turn my car around and go home and stop lying to my family and stop lying to my daughter and stop doing the things that I'm doing. And I physically cannot do it. No matter how much I want to stop at this point, I can't do it. And I knew powerlessness in that moment like I had never known before. And then for the first time, I cried out to God with absolute sincerity, and it wasn't one of these foxhole prayers or like, dear God, fix the judge or the relationship or get me out of this situation. It was a sincere prayer from my soul, from the depths of my being. And I didn't know what I was praying to or who I was praying to, and I certainly thought this being, this power, if this power existed, had abandoned me a long time ago. But I was out of odds. The book talks about this jumping off point that we have. I can't live with it, and I can't live without it anymore, and that's where I was. And I screamed out, and this was my prayer. It was, dear God, just kill me or stop me. Cursing, screaming, pounding on the steering wheel, begging God to just take me off this planet or stop me some way because I couldn't do this anymore. Begging. And 12 hours later, I had handcuffs on my wrists, escorted to the police station. And I would love to stand up here and tell you, too, that I have this beautiful gift of desperation, and that's where, the psychic change occurred, and that's absolutely not what happened. Because this is how insidious my ego is and this alcoholism is. Within 48 hours of experiencing this desperation and being separated, I'm terrified. And I'm trying to manage again, and I'm trying to figure out a way to avoid the consequences that I'm most certainly about to face. And I pick up the phone and I call every single person I can think of to try to manage my way out of this situation. Somebody get me out of here, somebody fix this for me. And one by one, every single human power that I had come to rely on and manipulate hung up the phone on me, and thank God they did. I thank them for that constantly. And because I was just me, and I was left to my own devices, and I had 11 felonies at this point, like I said, and my thoughts were, I got arrested on a little retail theft, so the judge is going to take it easy on me and just send me home, and that's not what happened. The judge sent me to state prison. And for 18 months, I have absolute empirical evidence of that what I suffer from does not come in a bottle. Because for 18 months, when I have no chemical or spiritual solution in my life, I just become a monster. That's the only thing that happens. Selfish and self-seeking, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-pity, delusion, all of that stuff. Although I can't see it at the time. Everybody else could see it. At one point, I had a phone account that my parents paid for, right, when I called home from prison. And I called and, abused them verbally and told them what they needed to do for me. And I wrote these horrible letters home that I thought were apology letters about, oh, Hal, I'm so sorry, but if you were better parents or siblings, I wouldn't be here. P.S., send me money. My sister, provided me these letters at 5 years sober, and I felt sick to my stomach reading them, but thank God we have that relationship today where we get to laugh about this kind of stuff. But this is the evidence that where my problem really lies. It's not the drink. In fact, I almost get worse. I get worse. I'm more afraid. I want to manage more. Alcohol removes that. I'm just, I cause a lot of harm, don't get me wrong, and, alcohol is definitely a problem. But when I put it down, sober gets bad. Sober being the problem is bad because me driven by fear, me driven by self, that's not good. I hurt so many people, and there's evidence to that too, is 8 years sober, COVID hit. I went through my steps again. I owed 26 amends. And these were not oh, sorry I cut you off in traffic, or no, these were big amends that I had to clean up, and thank God I did. And thank God I had a woman guide me to do that, and the humility and willingness to do that again, because I had this moment of grace where some people walked out the door, I picked up the phone and asked another woman for help. But for me, that truth remains even now, coming up at 11 years, that the problem will always be my selfishness and self-centeredness. That's where it lies. Sober is what I need to treat, and I did not know this at the time. So, after 18 months, of being incarcerated, I get out, and I still have ideas about how I should live my life and how everybody else should. And I get out, and within 48 hours of me being home, every idea that I have is stripped away from me, and I'm left with nothing. Nothing. I don't have a job, no money, no phone. I'm wearing hand-me-down clothes for my niece. I'm living in a recovery house, and nobody in my family really wants to talk to me. I mean, you can't imagine why, right? After those lovely letters, and I'm curled up in the fetal position on the floor of a recovery house bathroom, and I don't know what's wrong with me. Because I want to die and I'm sober. I thought this was supposed to be great, right? I thought I was supposed to be happy, joyous, and free, and this doesn't feel happy, joyous, and free to me. And I'm crying out again to this power that I'm not sure I believe in, and I'm pretty sure maybe doesn't exist. And I'm crying out all over again, God, what am I supposed to do now? Help me. What do I do now? Because this hurts. I can't do this. I can't do this sober thing. And God directed me up the steps in my old home group, the Greater Northeast Group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where it happened for me. Or started to happen. I saw God for the first time in the eyes of a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And mind you, I've seen happy, joyous, and free, lit up people, like so many of you in this room, and I can be a lot of times, and I just thought they were insane or liars, or they didn't have problems like me, or they didn't drink like me, or it hadn't been as bad for them. I didn't believe them. But the people God put in my path this last time, these were people I drank with, got loaded with. These were people I absolutely knew for a fact were just as screwed up as me. And these people were sober, they were lit up, and they were free. And I knew they didn't do that. I knew they didn't have the power to do that. I knew there was something bigger going on in these rooms. And I'm still in that place where I'm different and I'm worse. I still think maybe it worked for you, but it won't work for me. But I'll tell you, I had no other solutions left. I had tried them all, and they had all failed. So I was absolutely willing to do whatever you people told me to do. And I asked a woman to help me, and she took me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't have those white light experiences. I remember my third step. I'm making, at the time I didn't know this, but probably the most important decision I have ever made in my entire life. And I'm down on my knees with this woman, and I'm holding her hand, and I don't even know what I'm saying, and all I'm thinking about is myself. I miss this moment because I'm so busy thinking about what everybody else in the room thinks about me, that as I'm kneeling on the floor praying and holding this woman's hand, I don't have this experience where heaven's open, and what did happen, however, was I got up from that prayer, and that woman slid paper in front of me and told me to start writing. And I immediately got to work writing that inventory. And, because it says, if you turn the page over from our third step, it says it right there in black and white. This decision, vital and crucial step that could have little permanent effect, unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of what had been blocking me, right? So she tells me, write who you're angry at. And this woman knew me very well, so she set me up. She's just write the first few columns, just the who and why, and I went to town. I went nuts. 27 pages. I actually just found that original inventory, by the way, because moving will reveal some wonderful things to you. And my God. But that's all I can see when I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm such a victim. Look what you did to me. This is it. And as we sat there for several hours while she resolutely pointed out, my mistakes, and helped me see things from a different angle, right? Brought me to those third and fourth columns. I started to see the truth for the first time in my entire life. For instance, my mother, this woman who I have demonized and tortured my entire life up until that point because of this thing that happened when I was 15 years old. What comes out of this conversation, as we get to that fourth column, not only how selfish and inconsiderate, all these terrible things I had been to my mother, punishing and hurtful. But what comes out of this conversation is I took that one thing that she did, and I allowed it to blind me to who she really is. The woman who shows up and detoxes with fresh clothes, the woman who, pays my bail for me, the woman who invited me to Thanksgiving dinner when nobody else in the family wanted to talk to me. My mother has her own brokenness and her own pain, and she did her absolute best, but she loved me unconditionally, and I couldn't see that through my resentment. That's what my resentment does. It blocks me from the truth, it blocks me from you, and it blocks me from my Creator. And when I see that, I start to feel just a little bit lighter. I can't tell you I could look the world in the eye and feel the nearest to my Creator immediately. That took time. I envy those people who had that experience. Mine was oh God, I saw it black and white. I'm like, this is awful. This is who I've really been. Because I was very convinced I was a victim when I came in here. I was very convinced that you were the problem. The only problem with you being the problem is I can't do a damn thing about that. Right? My happiness and peace and well-being is all contingent on all of you behaving the way I want you to. And I can fall into that trap on any given day, I promise you. That's why we have other steps down the line to keep us, out of that thinking. But, I was doomed to failure coming in here with that. So when I see it in black and white for the first time, I'm really uncomfortable. And that first 6 and 7 experience, I'm not holding anything back. Because the bar is really low, by the way. I've never been faithful in a relationship. I've burglarized homes. I've tortured every person I know. So, of course, please, God, have everything. Take everything from me. I'm not clinging to any of this stuff. Now, you fast forward, to a decade of sobriety, and that changes. At least for me, it did. It was the gossip isn't that bad. It's no big deal if I judge this person, and I become less willing for God to remove these things that are objectionable. And I'll hold on to them until I'm in agonizing pain again, curled up in the fetal position, crying out to God again. Unfortunately, I'm a slow learner, and this is how my journey has been. But, my defects of character, oftentimes stick around because I cling to them for dear life. I think they're helping me in some way. And instead, they're hindering me, and they're keeping me out of the sunlight of the Spirit. But in the beginning, coming in and having that experience, I really just started to feel things change around me. I wasn't stealing when I walked into the drugstore anymore. I would just steal even if I had money in my pocket. That's the kind of stuff that I did. I felt like I was entitled to everything. And all of a sudden, I'm just doing little things like telling the truth, helping somebody else out. And I'm grateful. I had a good sponsor and I had this experience. So when I went out into the world, to make this first round of amends, that I wasn't carrying all these defects of character with me when I went out to attempt to clean these things up. And for me, the ninth step was really where the lights really started to turn on for me. I started to feel that power, this God idea, but it wasn't coming from you, it was coming from inside of me. That fundamental idea of God that is deep down within every man, woman, and child. I started to feel that when I sat down with the people that I hurt. And I didn't say that I was sorry, I said that it was wrong. And I told them what I did, and I admitted the things that I had done to them, and I gave them an opportunity to share their pain, the pain that I had caused with me, and asked them what I needed to do to make it right, and followed that up with action. And as I go through the rest of these steps, and I finally get to step 12, I'm experiencing these promises at these points, these extravagant promises. And to me, they're extremely extravagant because I never knew a life without fear. And you're telling me I'm going to know a new freedom and a new happiness, that I'm not going to regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. These things, by the time I get to the 12th step and I'm sitting with another woman, it all comes full circle, and I realize God took all of these things that I come into Alcoholics Anonymous with, all these disgusting, vile things that I think I can never be redeemed for, never be forgiven for, and He turns them around and He makes them my most useful tools in Alcoholics Anonymous. So when a woman is sitting telling me that she got drunk while she was pregnant, or the things she did to her children, she abandoned them, or instead of judging her or looking down on her, I can say, I did that too, me too. And that's when I really felt the power of what was going on here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my life was completely transformed. Those early days were amazing. I had nothing on the outside. It was nothing. But in meetings, in service, and I had this fire for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am so grateful for the people who threw me right into this work and right into the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. So when the trials and low spots that are certain came, I had a God of my understanding, and I had you people to walk me through that. Our big book talks about being given a life beyond our wildest dreams. I came in here talking about some of this, beyond my wildest dreams, that I own a home, right? But some of the life beyond our wildest dreams, some of my idea of that has changed recently. Because I always thought my life beyond my wildest dreams was 6-figure income, You know, it had something to do with the outside, right? It was always out here. But I'm coming to learn, like, a life beyond my wildest dreams is something different. It's being present in the here and now, like being able to show up for things and walk through things that I never thought possible. Like when I was coming up on 4 years sober, and my mother called me and told me that my oldest sister was dead. I intuitively knew how to handle a situation which used to baffle me. In my heart, I knew where I needed to be, and it was my parents' side, and I needed to be there to help them bury their daughter, and I needed to help my nieces and nephew bury their mother, and this wasn't about me and my grief and my pain. And God gives me this beautiful gift where I get to show up, and I get to stand next to my mother, the woman I had my biggest resentment towards, right? My greatest resentment was my mother, and I got to stand next to her in the exact moment she sees her daughter in the casket for the first time, and I get to be there to comfort her. And not only that, for the last year and a half of my sister's life, we had the best friendship we'd ever had. Even before, like even when we were children, our relationship was made whole by the amends process and through Alcoholics Anonymous and through God and the 12 steps. And I get to carry that with me for the rest of my life. I remember when I made an amends to my mother, and I asked her, you know, is there anything that I can do to make this right? And my mother said, I need you to be a living example of recovery to your brother. And, you know, I was hoping for, like, an easy one, like my dad, like, keep doing what you're doing. Love my dad. But, you know, and that, I promise you, you know, that's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to love someone who suffers from this disease when you have found a solution and you want to share it with the world. And you want to love them to death, and you want to bang this book over their head, and you want to pound what you know into them. And it's hard to walk this walk and carry the message without words, and that's what we're required to do. And I tried this on and off for several years, carrying this message to my brother without words through the example that we learned here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, several months ago, I was on the phone with my brother, and we had an argument. And it was stupid. Like, we were arguing about, like, something going on in the family that had nothing to do with either one of us, by the way. It was just like, we're arguing about my other brother's marriage, if you want. That's the truth. That's what we were arguing. Yeah, it's crazy. And it was just this stupid back and forth. And he said something to me. And, I made a little passive-aggressive comment. And he's like, okay, well, why don't you tell me how you really feel? And I was like, well, okay. And what I do is I put on my best Miss Alcoholics Anonymous cap. And this is what I say in the kindest, most loving way. I think it's time for you to take accountability. Stop blaming mom and dad for your problems. You know, that bullshit. Like, stop blaming mom and dad for your problems. And he freaked out. And he said, I'll never fucking talk to you again. And he didn't. My brother blocked my number that night. And I remember I called my mother, and this is where we talk about the 10th step and why this is so vital. Because in this moment, I have a slight awareness that something is not right. But I can't get there. Like, I can't get there just through God. Like, I need to have a 10th step to gain awareness to what the problem is here, because I do not feel good after this phone call. So I call my sponsor, and we go through this work together, and we talk this out, and I have this experience where I gain the awareness that this wasn't him and this wasn't me. I was just being selfish, and he was being selfish. Our egos were right up against each other, and that I needed to make this right. And my sponsor suggested, like, I do it quickly, because it says, like, we do this promptly. And I said, well, he blocked me. And she said, okay, we'll text him every day for 3 days, and if he doesn't unblock you, get his address and write him a note. And that's what I did. And it's, you know, when I got to day 3 and I had to write the note, I found the smallest piece of paper. And I'll tell you why. Because my ego wants to write him a long letter about, I'm sorry, but, and I couldn't do that. So instead I wrote 3 sentences. I wrote, Dear Benjamin, I was wrong to speak to you that way. You didn't deserve that. I love you very much. And 2 months later, he was dead as a direct result of this disease. And, this just happened 3 months ago. And, I remember being on the phone with my brother's girlfriend the morning he died, and I stayed on the phone with her for 2 hours because and this is what Alcoholics Anonymous teaches me to do, to be there for the woman who had to perform CPR on my brother, to be there for her and not make it about me, right? And she's telling me that my brother got that note. He read that note. And he said, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep her blocked for a couple more weeks, make her sweat it out. She said, why? And he said, because I can. He was just like me. But again, God gives me this gift. I'm talking about a life beyond my wildest dreams. God gives me the gift of having the strength to stand up and eulogize my brother, to carry his ashes to the funeral. What you guys gave me here in Alcoholics Anonymous was the knowing and the knowledge that and the truth that it is more important to love my brother than to be right. And I don't have to carry guilt and shame with me until the day that I die. My brother knew up until his last breath that I loved him. And the only reason I wanted him to listen to me and I wanted to fix this is because I was terrified of losing him. That's it. I was afraid. I was just afraid. And, this is what I'm talking about. A life beyond our wildest dreams is I didn't think about a drink. I walked through both of these horrible losses that these people I never knew a life without. And I didn't think about a drink, and there was a peace within me, like that peace that passes all understanding, that has to be God. That's a life beyond my wildest dreams, because I ran from everything. I ran if I had a bad day at work. I'm like, nah, I'm just leaving. I ran from everything, and I didn't flinch. I didn't flinch. And that's God. That's God. And it's not all sad and horrible, right? I don't want to stand up here and be like, my whole life has been a tragedy, because it's not. My life is absolutely beautiful. And Alcoholics Anonymous has given me this incredible life. I talk about these 11 felonies. I am now a paralegal in a corporate law firm today. This is the transformation that I experience here. It isn't just from, it goes from the inside out. We don't get promised anything material here. Nothing, right? But I promise you that, when you're honest and loyal and hardworking and you pay your debts and people want to hire you, people give you credit, things like that. You guys taught me that. And I get to have this stuff today. I get to have this external stuff, which, again, could be gone through a rocky economy. I have no control over that stuff. But what I have that's even more important than that are these relationships. Like my daughter should hate my guts after what I put her through. She has every right to. But my daughter is my best friend in the entire world. And we do everything together, and I've gotten to have the experience of travel around the country with her. We just ran a marathon together 2 weeks ago, like a full marathon. And, we do everything. And she's closer to me than the man who raised her. And that's not because he's a bad person. In fact, he's a wonderful person, and we're good friends today. We celebrate holidays together. I was at his wedding. I'm a part of their family as well. Again, this is how the amends process makes things whole again. My daughter gets to experience a whole family. She has her mother, her father, her stepfather, her stepbrother, and her baby sister all together under one roof, celebrating joyfully at holidays together and not bitching at each other and trying to undercut each other. And this is Alcoholics Anonymous. The example we set here has a ripple effect that we have. I don't think we'll ever see the true scope of this. But I do know that this program and the way I've lived my life, the way you have taught me, has transformed everything around me, my relationships with my family. The fact that my mother and father called me today to ask for advice on things about how to handle, they ask me all the time how to handle situations with Benjamin before he died and, other things going on in my family. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't. And I tell them, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. But what happens here is people around us, people who love us and people who just know us, see God working through us. They see the transformation, they witness, and they want to ask, what's going on? And honestly, if my recovery and my relationship with God and this work I do here is only benefiting me, then what's the point? Everything I did up until coming here to Alcoholics Anonymous was a benefit to me and me only. And then finally I come here in the rooms of AA, and I could be the AA thief. I have been. I've also been the two-stepper. You know, I come in here and, like, that's what happened coming up on 8 years sober. Like, I hit a brick wall. I realized, I admitted I was powerless, and I wanted to save every woman in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I couldn't figure out why. Every time they called my phone, I'm like, oh, God, what does she want? Because it wasn't coming from a place of love anymore. It was coming from a place of Sarah. It was awful. And, like, I'm suffering internally because I forgot there's an entire body of work that takes place in between those two steps. And when I'm not doing that work, I have nothing to transmit anybody. Like, it's just me giving terrible advice to people. And, you know, it's interesting what COVID did. I would never be so audacious or horrible as to say COVID was a good thing, because so many people love so much. But I will say, I am not sad that I had the experience of having all my outside stuff removed from me, because it brought me closer to my Creator, because it made me wake up to the fact that I had gotten away from practicing these vital steps, and that I was suffering spiritually, and that I was on my way out the door, and I didn't know it. And it brought me back to having the humility of admitting I don't know anything. I don't know anything. That's where I must stay. That's the place I want to stay. I don't know. I don't know. I have a home group. I love it. And I don't know. They ask me something like, sure, I don't know. I don't know. What are you guys going to do? If I know something about a tradition or something, sure, I'll share that. But it is no longer important for me to be the manager and to know everything. Being in the place of not knowing has set me free. And I get to have these relationships with these women that I sponsor. And what a gift and a miracle that is. That I get to witness their eyes light up, that I get to witness them walk through these steps, witness them get their children back, get their families back, watch them be transformed, then watch them turn around and help a new woman, and watch them drop all that shame and guilt they came in here with, and watch them get set free. Being able to, you know, and not only that, these women are a mirror to me. Like, how dare I sit with a woman and tell her to clean up some mess when I have this mess over here? Without doing the same work. Like, it strips me of the ability to be a hypocrite. They also shine, things back on me that I need to be doing more of. Like, maybe I need to be more attentive with prayer and meditation. Like, whatever it is, these women are a gift to me, and they have saved my life. I don't know that I totally bought that. If I'm being honest, when I came in and it was saying, they're probably helping you more than you help them. Like, no, they're not. Like, well, you should hear me. I have so much wisdom and experience to offer. Like 4 years sober, when I'm slamming everybody over the head with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether they were interested or not, that's what I believe. Like, they're not helping me. I'm helping them. And then I'm, like, shocked when I'm upset that they go get another sponsor or they can't stay sober. I take it personally. I'm like, why? If they just listened to me, they'd be sober, right? Yeah, having this experience of dropping all of that and realizing this has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm a conduit for God. That's absolutely it. That's it. Like, we get to plant some seeds. It's none of my business. When and where they grow, that's God's. Maybe if I'm lucky, I will have disturbed someone about their alcoholism and made a friend. That's it, right? My job is to love people. That's it. Welcome them and love them and tell the truth. And that's all I can do here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And these are some of the gifts, these roles that I get assigned, that I get to live today. It's just amazing to me that I have been given this life. And again, it's not all perfect. I have a son that I haven't seen in 16 years now. The last time I saw my son, he was 6 years old. And I was at my daughter's lacrosse game. And, my son, I had been in and out of his life for many, many years. And he was being raised by another woman. My second husband got remarried. And he was calling this other woman mom. And I was so angry. Like, how she's trying to steal my child from me. Like, I didn't just leave. And, one of the last times I saw him, I'm at my daughter's lacrosse game, and my 6-year-old little son looks at me and he says, you're not my real mom. Kim's my real mom because she gave birth to me. You just gave birth to me, and she takes care of me every day. And, I immediately got drunk that night, I promise you. And, it felt like a knife was stabbed into my gut because it was the truth from a 6-year-old. And that was one of the last times I saw him. And when I was getting sober, I was taught to write letters to people who I couldn't contact or couldn't reach out to directly, and I wrote a letter to his father and his stepmother, and they did not respond, and that's been followed up for years with multiple attempts to contact all of them. My son is now an adult, and he still does not want to speak to me. I write a letter every single month. I send a card, I send money and everything, and I just don't expect a response, right? And coming up on a few years sober, I had ideas of what I wanted to do. I was getting restless. I was getting angry. I was like, I don't understand. I have 4 years sober now. Why doesn't he want to talk to me? Why isn't that enough? Like, why haven't I done enough here? Right? The farmer coming out of the cellar, you ran the windstop blowing. Like, he didn't even know who I was half the time. That's how bad of a mother I was. I put him in physical danger because that's the kind of mother I was. And I get a few years sober, and I think it's my right to dive back into his life. And I had well-meaning people in and out of the rooms of AA telling me, you know what, yeah, get a lawyer. You never fully lost rights. Do this, do that. Mm-hmm. And for once in my life, I thought, instead of doing what I want to do, and I'll tell you what I want to do. I'll tell you what I want to do on any day of the week, because I know where my son lives. I want to drive to his house. I want to bang on his door. I want to throw my arms around him, and I want to tell him that I love him and that I'm sorry that I don't get to do what I want to do anymore. Instead of doing what I wanted to do, I asked God for an intuitive thought or decision, just like a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us to. I am very bad at the relax and take it easy part. I promise. That part I have not even remotely mastered. I just keep going back to God. I'm like, come on, God. Like, give me an answer. Give me inspiration. Come on. Give me something. Give me something. Give me something. It's been a decade. I don't know what he looks like. Give me something. Help me. And he did. Instagram. I typed my son's name in one night, and there he was. For the first time in a decade, I saw my little boy, and he was happy, and he was loved. And I have this feeling come in my heart, like this intuitive knowing that the restoration of this relationship will be on God's time and not on mine. And what's come with more work, more peeling back the layers, more digging deeper, and deepening my relationship with my Creator, and this knowing that the restoration of this relationship may never look the way I want it to. But God will use this for something bigger. I just can't see what that is yet. I always have hope. Hope without expectation. That's all I have. And here's the thing. I am no less free. And that's not me. Because coming in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was convinced that the outside had to be okay for me to be okay inside. I believed that I had to have the boyfriend, I had to have the marriage, the white picket fence, the kids, the job, that nobody I loved could die. That's what I believed coming in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm here to tell you that is not the truth. Because we need to burn the idea into the consciousness of every person that we can get well regardless of anyone. All we have to do is trust God and clean house. And that is my truth. That has been my experience. And it doesn't even say sober. It says get well. Because when I'm well from the inside out, I don't need to drink anymore. I don't need that effect produced. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous produce the same effect as alcohol. A lot more work, but they do the same thing. And that has been my experience. And, I'm not unique. I'm not special. I'm not gifted. This same freedom that I've experienced, regardless of outside circumstances, this true unconditional sobriety that has to do with, a relationship with God and having this experience from the inside out, that's available to every single person here tonight. I love you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Go back to my, you may not remember me, but I had a service position for this group for 13 months. They had four speaker meetings a week. And when they were looking for a speaker seeker, I signed up for the job, because I knew I needed to be in service. But I thought there's no way I'll be able to find 4 speakers a week. And I look around this room, and there's a bunch of people here that I met as a direct result of that service. Big George, and you spoke for me at Superior University. You may have 2. Does your last name start with a D? Okay, well, I'll get you next month. Anyway, what a wonderful wonderful conference. Chris, help me out now. Other than closing with the prayer, what else do we need to do?
Help others.
Yeah.
Good job.
Huh?
Only job, help others.
Right. I told them about the dates, April 26th and 27th, 2024. We do have a committee here to help us clean up, but if there's anybody here that doesn't have, thank you, if there's anybody here that doesn't have something pressing and wants to be of service tonight to help us clean this hall up, we'd appreciate it. I want to thank Rock Bottom Beginners again for hosting this, and the Firehouse, and everybody for showing up, and it's really been an honor. I feel so inadequate to be your MC thing or whatever, but I want to thank you for tolerating me, and if nobody's told you today they love you, I do. If you would be so kind, I'd like to close. Oh yeah, the flowers. I mentioned it a moment ago. Please don't fight over them. Okay? Don't fight over them, but we don't want to throw them away. Please take some flowers home with you. We're going to close with the Lord's Prayer. I'd like to have a moment of silence, if we could, for those that are suffering from this illness and may never get here, particularly the children that get caught in the crossfire of this heinous illness, followed by the Lord's Prayer. Who's Father?
Thank you so much for your service. Great job. Again, we were under time constraint. We're supposed to be done by 7:30, out by 8:30. Thanks for being there. What are you going to be done tonight? What are you going to be done tonight? Thank you. This is your other mic. You want me to put that back on here?
No, I'll put it in my bag.